thank you all for coming. Just a bit of background. I'm CFO of the company, been involved in the gaming industry since 2011 and led the company back in 2015 and 16 through a reverse merger to get a listing on AIM. I was there the CFO of a shell company which was waiting for a good candidate to take over, and we got in contact with Veltyco, which was a company actively in affiliate marketing for a sportsbook casino brand in Germany, BetSafe. Through that acquisition from the group, basically get the listing done and trading on AIM since June 2016. The BetSafe brand was the start to basically create cash flow from the business. The BetSafe brand started back in 2012, generated cash flow, and from that basically using the funds to get into other types of business, which we did since the listing and entered into a number of additional brands in lottery and in trading, and basically expanding the business from there.
Thank you, Marcel. Just a quick intro on myself. I'm a director on the Veltyco board. I'm a former investment banker. I spent around 20 years in the city, listing companies and raising company money and around the world, really. In terms of the company itself, I think we are fortunate enough to be active in the three main online gaming markets which are out there from a revenue standpoint, which is essentially sportsbook and casino on the one hand, lottery on the other hand, and what we call trading as a whole. And all those three we are active on the online business side of things, and we are seeing very significant growth on all these three verticals. If I start with the first point here, what we do exactly, the company started as a pure marketing company in the online gaming industry, and slowly evolved also to add the operations of some of these websites and products effectively to the brand. That started with the Bet90 acquisition that we've announced about a year ago now. And I think we essentially have a European exposure that is slowly building into a more global exposure from a revenue standpoint. Latin America is becoming very promising, and so does Asia and Africa as well. In terms of what markets we are looking at, the sportsbook and casino online market is around 25 billion euros strong in terms of revenue worldwide. The lottery business, the online lottery business, is around 3 billion, and the what we call trading is probably around 2-3 billion as well. So significant amounts of money generated through all these three verticals, where again we are involved. In terms of the business model and how we interact between the three verticals that we have, there are synergies between those three, because some players can actually move from one platform to another one, especially given the fact we announced recently we had put in place a crypto wallet to enable a player to jump from one side to the other. In terms of growth strategy, there's a strong internal growth built into the platform, and we expect, and have done in the past, grown to acquisition, and we expect to continue this trend in the future. It is a business that is highly cash generative. In fact, when you talk about marketing purely, the main cost is the actual marketing. The overhead costs are very limited. The number of employees, full-time employees at the company level, is very limited. And the more cash you spend on the marketing, the more the revenues will be, and the more the EBITDA of the company will be. So we're looking at margins, EBITDA margins that are north of 50%, and a net income and cash flow that is quite big as well. In terms of management team and experience, I think it is a top-notch team out there, both at the operational level and at the board level. We completed the reverse merger at the end of June 2016, and since then have completed 3 acquisitions. One for a company called TradeLogic in the trading side of things, and then in April 2017, Bet90, which we mentioned already, and then Tippen4You, which is a small German website where people share their views on different bets, etc. that they place. So that's for the background of the company. We recently announced a small potential acquisition where we enter exclusivity for a company called VLTY, which is essentially a German sportsbook operation that we are likely to complete, we've announced, by mid-March this year. I think this slide, just to give you a bit more background on the brands that we have on the sportsbook and casino, there are two brands that we operate. Bet90 is a brand that we own, that we acquired last year. And as I said, that we're expanding on a global basis at the moment. And BetSafe is the brand where we have a marketing agreement with the Betsson Group, which is a Swedish listed company, to market their brands into the German-speaking territories in Europe, so i.e. Germany, Austria, Switzerland. In terms of lottery, it's run by a company called Lotto Palace, which is, again, has a global reach and enables players to essentially bet on any lottery on a worldwide basis, independently of where you live or where you log in from. And then in terms of the trading and options market, there's three brands: Zoom Trader, which we acquired in November 2016, Option 888, and X Markets. And you can see the revenues, the industry revenues that are estimated as well along those lines. I think the next few slides will just go through each opportunity and its growth, but I think it's probably worth not spending too much time on it. I think an important slide that Marcel will probably go through is the eSports business, which is a business where we have invested recently and I think which has a lot of potential going forward.
Yeah, we announced this venture in October, November. eSports in general, for the people that don't know what eSports is, eSport is basically gaming, and then the eSports part is then gaming with audience. So it's not specifically games like FIFA, which you might expect, but it's really the strategy games, the shooter games, where the best players of these games actually compete together in sport arenas where actually really 50,000-60,000 people show up to watch it on the big screens. So a huge market. The estimated eSports market is that there is about 2.5 billion active computer gamers. So it's really the computer games in all the spectrum. Obviously you got the diehards and the amateurs, but on that level, you have the players that are the best in their league, and we always compare, like we all know Messi and Ronaldo, who are the best in football, and you also have, whether you like the game or not, you have the best players in this strategy and shooter games. So it's especially focused on the market, sort of 15 to probably 30, obviously growing. That age will grow with the people, but a lot of movement is shown. Also, if you look at the sporting events and the football matches, that less and less young people go to see these matches, and actually they are very interested in going to events like this. eSports.com is the company, the domain under which it works, which is probably the strongest domain you can get. Basically, it combines a lot of websites that are currently out there already that either do statistics, or you provide tutorials, or you provide a forum between players, and actually eSports.com provide everything at the same time. So it's building a community with active players and interested people, which we then can also use for our products. We have an exclusive arrangement to link bet90.com, because that's obviously the gambling platform. So these events also have bets. You can place bets on the outcome of the games, and we will then be the exclusive provider of these events.
In terms of the model, I think you would have understood that this is a very fast-moving and fast-growing business across all verticals. I think eSport is probably the cherry on the cake in terms of future growth for the next 10 years, and I think being here early and building a very strong community is going to be key for the long-term growth of the company, and especially adding the betting part on it. In terms of the P&L, as I mentioned before, the marketing-driven business makes it very easy and predictable to read, and the P&L with the main expense being the marketing cost. As a matter of fact, if you increase the marketing spend on a wise basis, the revenues will increase, and then therefore will lead to a higher EBITDA. Typically, we're looking at 33% of the revenue that I spend on marketing, and the rest translates very much into EBITDA. Obviously, you have overhead costs, but we're looking, as I said before, for EBITDA margins which are north of 50 or 55%. We have very long revenue sharing agreements with the various partners we act with that are providing the software and the platforms to organize those bets, and then we provide the marketing, we share the revenues with them according to long-term contracts. The ability to to transform and to translate into the operational part of the business has been more important recently with the acquisition of Bet90, where we are more in control of our destiny. Also from the point of view of global territories and global reach, I think this is also quite an important topic because BetSafe, as I mentioned before, has been limited to the German-speaking territories in Europe, which means that we can use similar databases of players that we own to enable the same type of bets in Latin America, in Africa, and so on and so forth. So that's going to be quite important for the organic growth going forward as well, the rollout of Bet90. In terms of recent trading and recent highlights, we mentioned that we were reverse listed at the end of June 2016, where the stock price was around 25p at the time. We're currently trading at around high 70s, 80s. So we had a good run. That was driven mainly by organic growth, as I mentioned before. We've had these acquisitions announced, but they are really being rolled out since the later part of 2017. So they should be more visible in terms of the P&L from 2018 onwards. We've announced recently the eSports agreement. I think that's quite important. We've announced also on the Bet90 side that we were partnering with the Sao Paulo Football Federation to also launch the Bet90 brand in Latin America. And then more recently, the VLTY acquisition that I mentioned before, which is again expected to complete by mid-March of this year, which will also give us another platform to operate from as opposed to being a pure marketing company. So in summary, a fast-growing AIM company, profitable, highly cash generative, without debt at a company level, completely, at least for now, self-financed, having a very clear path towards organic growth going forward, and a few acquisitions that we see on our table, which makes it more attractive to gain market share. It's also a consolidating industry whereby a number of smaller players would like to be sold out, and I think we have the platform both on the marketing side but also on the operation side nowadays to make those acquisitions possible on our standpoint. And I think we've proven it through Bet90 and Tip4U, and hopefully we can deliver fairly soon on VLTY as well. So the future looks really bright, and I think we are willing to continue and grow this company much further.
Quick look at the financials. Last reported numbers are from the interims in June. We've shown good growth compared to unaudited period 2016. I mean, the first half year exceeded full year 16 already. I think what Gilles mentioned also is the marketing line, especially compared to the revenue line, which generally should be about 30% or lower, which is good here. And also, as mentioned, the G&A, salary in G&A is maintained quite low because of the organizational structure, which is it's only focused on the marketing. We pay the marketing people based on their performance, and operations are all outsourced to other companies. Recently announced last week, revenues for the full year as a pre-close number, 14.5 million in revenues, which is more than double than we did in 16. And EBITDA in excess of 8 million, which is even 4 times last year. So we're doing quite well. Good growth, as shown in the graphs underneath. The revenue and EBITDA per 6 months since 2016 show a steady increase in time. Other highlights, I think most have been touched on already. Bet90, Tippen. We announced during the release of our interims that we are considering paying a dividend, which we will further detail when we release the financial statements. Overview of the board. Uwe Lenhoff is the initial founder of the business back in 2012. He's leading the marketing side of business development. We've got Hans as a technology officer, Mark is a non-exec, and well, you can see the rest. So we're currently trading around, as Gilles mentioned, 78 to 79, which gets a valuation of about 60 million. Share price since the listing, it was closed at 20p the day of listing. We got to the pound level just at the day or the day after the release of the interims, and then sort of got stabilized between that 80 and 90 price point. The current target price from the analyst that is following us is actually 110, based on an EBITDA of 7 million for 17, which we have exceeded by 1 million at least. So I think that summarizes the presentation. Thank you.
Thanks for coming to talk to us. Two questions from me, please. I was wondering if it's possible to give a split between the three verticals as to how much revenues or profits, say, were achieved or you expect to achieve each year. And secondly, I noticed just in the accounts there was quite a large trade receivable outstanding, and that was a large part of that was going to be recovered through a joint venture, I believe. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that and how it's
revenue per vertical we don't disclose, and that has to do with the fact that the marketing is done from basically one side. I mean, for us, it doesn't really matter where the business comes from. So we work with a number of affiliates that basically target all the brands that we work with, resulting into revenues. But we've chosen not to disclose the verticals per se as individual revenue per vertical at this stage. On the JV, we've been working with the counterparty of the loan balance. We're facing a bit of a delay there, but we expect to complete that before we release the financial statements. Has to do with regulation, etc. We want to do regulated business in the territories that we're active in, and that is a bit tricky in some areas. So that just takes a bit of time. It took a bit more time than we expected. So that's why it hasn't completed yet, but we anticipate to announce something soon.
And that includes the so they owe, as well as the loan, a large part of the receivables.
That is part of the loan and the receivable part. Correct.
Hi, the ESMA is looking to ban binary options. So what sort of impact would that have on your business?
Well, the operators we work with don't do binary. So the binary was part of the business last year, but obviously we follow the regulation. There's no binary on the platforms anymore, so we adapt where necessary. And if there's changes like this, which is quite important, then we adapt. And again, the providers have taken off all the binary, which was a small part of the business, the binary itself. So it doesn't impact us a lot. And we anticipated on. I mean, it came out, I think, in mid-December, the official. But I mean, there were more sounds to that already. So we were preparing for a change already.
Thanks very much. Hello. I have three questions. First of all, this is a highly competitive industry. There are a lot of firms doing similar things to what you do. What is Veltyco's particular competitive advantage? Secondly, it's an industry with a lot of regulatory risk. Is there any mitigation you have in place for that factor? And then thirdly, eSports.com, which I just had a look at. Could you just clarify your relationship? Because you don't actually own that domain, do you? What is your relationship with it?
Now, to start with the last one, we have a minority interest, a small percentage, but it's more a partnership for us. It's the link with Bet90, with the betting platform, and it's having a partnership with them. So it's not per se a large investment for us. It's just the connection with them. On the competitive industry, true. That is mainly in the UK. In the UK, there's a lot of established brands that everybody recognizes. In continental Europe, it's totally different. And our focus is mainly on continental Europe. If you look at Nordics, Germany, Netherlands, Switzerland, but also like countries like Brazil, where we just have entered into that football league sponsorship. These markets are less focused on one or two or three brands, so there's much more room for new players.
And there's also licenses for most of the business we operate on, so it's not that we can just go and enter a new market like this. It always goes with a license that we can operate under certain criteria, etc. So that also helps to play in the hands of the regulator, etc.
Hello, good evening. Yes, on the marketing side, you made it sound so simple. You spend £1 million on advertising and it brings 2 million back onto the bottom line. Who do you advertise with? Who are your marketeers and how critical are they? And can they affect your profitability with price increases?
It is a combination of everything. Because, I mean, obviously it's not as simple as putting, if you put $1 million in now, and it will not be 10 times as much if you put in 10 million. I mean, obviously there is you need to control that. But I think the main item, and that's one of the key strengths of Leno, is the personal relationship. So there's always a couple of things in marketing. One is branding, which is relatively expensive, similar to the deal we have with the Sao Paulo Football Federation. It's a branding, so you need to make sure that the name is recognized. We have a similar agreement with FC Köln in the Bundesliga in Germany. So that's sort of the basis to get your brand out there. And then surrounding that is all other marketing stuff, like just normal branding. SEO is quite important, search engine optimization, and affiliates. We are sort of a super affiliate ourselves, but we use our affiliates also. So people in the countries that have connections to everybody. And you have to have a personal relationship, that's one, and you have to maintain them well. You have to pay them the right money for their leads and pay them on time. And that is, in very simple words, and the trick. And we have a team that is quite good in that.
Could you tell me what the current size for the eSports betting market is, and how does that, how is it in relation to the whole sporting betting market, if you like? And has anybody got any forecasts on how that's likely to grow in the coming years? Oh, and thirdly, did I understand correctly that you've got a sort of a quasi-monopoly on the eSports betting via the eSports.com website?
That last is not for all. I mean, it's we have a partnership with eSports.com. So anything. So and that obviously is a domain. But there is like more organizers of events, etc. So we are linked to the eSports.com, which going forward will have an impact in the industry. It's a company that started sort of summer last year, so it's quite young. It's in a developing stage at this moment, and basically building a database. So it's really in an early stage of the life cycle, if you like. So I hope that answers that question.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of the forecast for the betting industry on eSport, I think it's probably too early to say, because as Marcel mentioned, we are building, or eSports.com are building a community from which essentially a lot of services will be sold, including betting, through the partnership that Veltyco has with eSports.com. But I think given the number that we see in the industry and the growth at which the sector goes at the moment, it is pretty likely that it will be very significant, probably even bigger than all the three other verticals in the medium term. But it hasn't really taken off. What has taken off really is the ability for players to connect, etc., to appear on YouTube, to fill in platforms and forums, etc., or stadiums even when there are events and so on. But I think the betting part is really something that is taking off as we speak, including the live betting, which is something that is critically important for any type of bet, including like the football betting or the tennis betting. You want to be able to get in and out of a bet as the game goes on, and the same happens with eSports. So that's something that will, I guess, have a much higher importance in the Veltyco story in 2018 and 2019 than it has had to date.
You are sort of a flanker operating in one of the sin industries. And the sin industries are being increasingly stamped on by regulators across the world. And particularly with betting, there is a strong necessity for you to be seen to be ethical and not to promote gambling by people who aren't fitted for it, especially children. What are you doing about that? And are you thinking about it and being careful about it?
Yeah, of course. No, I mean it's obviously the marketing is generic. So you don't target a specific group. I mean, obviously we look at country by country what the regulations are. We have a couple of licenses in place, none in the UK at this stage. So the UK is, for us is sort of an area where we don't go. We're using the Maltese license for the Bet90 operations, for example. With the VLTY acquisition to be completed, we have a German and an Austrian license. So we're looking at licenses. We do have responsible gambling programs, etc., to address things like people that want to be protected against themselves. So we are addressing that as much as we can. But I mean, it's online, so you never know who's on the other side of the computer, and that always is a thing that is to be monitored as much as you can. But you can only do as much as you can do.
I got the Stockopedia report, which says you've got 8 employees and a market cap of 58 million. It's terrific. Could you tell us what the 8 employees do?
Well, the 8 employees. I mean, basically, I mean, you saw the board, which covers most of these 8. Because of the model, we currently work. Bet90 is the first exception. But all the rest of the operations are outsourced. So we only do the marketing, and we get a revenue share out of the results of these operations. In these operations are help desk services, retention schedules, etc. All let's say the cost centers. Then you get to a number, and then we get a revenue share. So I don't know, 150, 200 people that are actually working on the product are all excluded from our balance sheet, P&L, etc. Because it's all under the revenue line. So I hope that answers it a bit. But that's why we have, and 8 is actually a bit low. I think we have about 11, 12. But I mean, we have a small number of employees on the payroll. That's correct.
Yeah, it sounds like you've negotiated really good contracts with all these people. So thank you. That does it.
Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.